Hey, what's going on? I just kind of been rearranging a few things in my studio here and thought maybe it'd be kind of fun to go over my sound system a little bit, kind of show you what I got, what I use. I'm working in a room that's about 600 square feet. So I built the sound system I'm using in this room specifically for this room. It's not a sound system you'd use in a bar or a large club or anything. Really wouldn't hold up to that. I didn't spend a lot of money on it, but I bought everything specific for this room. It sounds amazing. Floods the room with sound. You can feel the bass. You can pierce your ears with the mids. So I thought maybe it'd be kind of fun just to go over what I'm using, why I'm using it, so here's kind of just a basic look at the room. It's kind of a mess right now because, like I said, I'm sort of rearranging everything. It's 10-foot ceiling, like I said, about 600 square feet. I don't know if the lighting's very good with the big window there where the plants are and stuff or not, but yeah, I'm gonna get not very good lighting over there. Sound system itself is kind of over in the corner. That's where you see all my keyboard playing and stuff going on. Everything's built into that wooden rack there, and if I can get a zoom in, I got my speaker tower on one side, all the way up and down. The other side, kind of blocking the keyboards because everything's tore apart and rearranging everything, but I got this kind of squashed down a little bit because I got a shelf up there that doesn't allow for doesn't really allow for everything to be stacked all the way up because it'll hit the top of the shelf. But so I'm going to go over all the different components and what they do. So the first thing I'm going to just look at real quick is a powered mixer. Made by Rockville Audio. It wasn't really expensive. I got it probably for $300, maybe a little less than that. The claim is 3,000 watts. It's absolutely not, but it is plenty loud. It's probably 300, maybe 400 watts coming out of it. It's an 8-channel mixer. It's got 2 7-band EQs, which I love. It's got 4-band parametrics on each channel, which is nice. Channel 7 and 8 are like a stereo channel, which I use just to plug my computer in to play the music through. And they've got a 2-band equalizer on that. It's got main outs that are powered, and then just line outs that aren't powered. It's got auxiliary sends, returns. It does have digital effects in it, which I never use. Has a USB in, so you put a flash drive in there or something with music. Works perfectly for this room. I didn't spend a fortune on it, but for this room, it's absolutely perfect. Fans are a bit loud on it, so if loud fans are not something you want to deal with, then might not work out real well, but usually when I'm jamming out in here, I got the thing cranked up so loud that it doesn't really matter anyways. And then what that is powering, so what I'm actually powering with the powered mixer is I'm running these Peavey 210 cabinets here. They're actually pretty expensive cabinets. This is what I used to use when I played full-time. I played bass for a long time. I'd use 2 of them in the big bars and clubs and 1 of them when I was in the smaller bars and clubs. They're running the mid bass, and they are running through a passive crossover straight out of the powered mixer into this, and then up top here, these horns I got way up at the top. These back in the day were very expensive horns. They're 20, 25 years old. So are the Peavey subs. They're about the same age. Back in the day, they were state-of-the-art titanium drivers. When I bought them, they didn't have cabinets on them. It was just the actual horn and the driver itself. They were like $350 a piece without cabinets. I bought them because I was in a small room, and I mounted them up in the corner of the wall, kind of above the door, just to give myself room because I didn't have room to put big cabinets in there. I built these cabinets to put the horns in. I put the crossovers in the horn cabinet, which is a little bit backwards from what you would normally do, but these are crossover with the 210s, and the Rockville Audio powered mixer is what's powering those directly out of its power output. So the next thing I got kind of in line with this, that's just coming out of the line outs on the powered mixer. I'm running them directly into a Behringer dual 15-band equalizer. Again, relatively inexpensive. I think it was about $150 for the EQ. Got sort of volume controls on it, or attenuators, but I like to have that so I can adjust the volume coming out of the EQ. I'm using this EQ out of the EQ outputs to run the mids, And then it's also got a sub out, which is adjustable. I've got it set to about 100 hertz. So the subs are coming out of this and the mids are coming out of this. So I got the mid bass and the highs going directly out of the power mixer with the PV210s and the horns. And then this EQ is running directly into this amp. Super cheap amp, probably the weak link in my setup. The name of it is Moose. I don't even know how to say it. Music, MUSYSIC. I paid about $125 for it. They advertised it as 2,000 watts. I absolutely knew it wasn't. Probably 100, maybe 150 if you're lucky. It's the weak link, but it sounds good. It works good. It's sufficient for this room. It's usually the first thing that maxes out when I start cranking the system, but it'll pierce your ears with because it's just running mids. It's all it's running, and the EQ that's going through it is got the mids and highs really boosted. The mid bass cut out, and it for the mids. What I got running out of that amplifier over here, if you can see them, are again Rockville Audio, which I'm very happy with Rockville Audio. If you're looking for inexpensive stuff for a home studio or something along those lines, it's a zoom out a little bit so you can see the whole cabinet there. I've been very happy with the stuff for the price. I got these probably for maybe 150 bucks a piece. They've got 12-inch drivers. I love 12s for mids. 12s seem to get the best mids out that I've found in anything. They've got a cheap horn in there and then 3 piezo tweeters in there. I bought the cabinet thinking I'd probably at some point blow everything up and gut it and put new components in there. There's really not a crossover. They've just got resistors limiting the power that's going to the horns and the tweeters. But honestly, they sound good. They'll pierce your ears. They're working good off that amp. I've had them up here for a couple years and been very happy with them. And that works perfectly for the mids. The other thing I've got going on that's coming out of the same equalizer, like I said, this EQ is putting out the submix. It's running to an Ampeg B2R bass amp. And this is, again, an expensive amp. This is what I used when I was playing a lot. I would use it when I was running one of the PV cabinets. When I ran both of them, I used a little bigger amp. It's 400 watts, a true 400 watts. Old school amplifier. It does have a little bit of graphic EQ on it and parametric EQ, so it's nice for dialing in the subs, and that's just running my subs. So for subs, if you come see them down here, I got, again, Rockville Audio. These were probably maybe 250 bucks a piece. They're 18 inches. I kind of bought them because they were about the same size as the PVs, so they look good lined up together. They sound amazing. I read in some of the reviews, people didn't think they sounded like subs, but they're just plugging them into an amp and expecting them to sound like a sub. They're not gonna. I've got them running through a dedicated crossover through their own amp. Their own amp has an EQ. Once I got these things dialed in, you can feel the bass anywhere in the 600 square foot room. Thumps, sounds amazing. Totally happy with these things. So you really don't have to spend a fortune to get decent sound as long as you buy equipment that's suitable for your application. What I was trying to do when I built this sound system is I built it specifically for this room. Again, this is not a sound system you'd use on a stage or in a club or at a bar or something. It'd be fine for a practice room, you know, if you had a band that was just practicing. Maybe a little overkill for something like that. It'd be fine for DJing a small venue. For a home practice studio like I got, where I might have 1 or 2 friends over kind of jamming out. Sounds amazing, sounds great, works really, really well. Honestly, between everything in the sound system alone, counting cables and stuff, I probably got to maybe $3,000 into it, including the expensive components. Maybe a little more than that with the expensive ones. I think the Ampeg amp was about $1,000. So that's what I'm using in this room. Sounds amazing. Kicks butt. I've knocked things off the shelf just with the bass thumping. I've had pictures fall off the wall. Once you crank it up, it really does sound good. So you really, like I said, don't need to spend a fortune on a sound system as long as you design it to do what you want it to do. I designed it to work in this room. It's not something I would take out to a club or a bar or to, you know, it'd work fine for a practice band. I wouldn't mic drums, like acoustic drums. I wouldn't mic them through it. I don't think it'd hold up to that. But so that's basically what I'm using for a sound system for this room. Just wanted to make it, you know, evident that you don't have to spend a fortune to get a decent sound system. Just get a sound system that's going to work for the application you're going to use it for. This is not something you'd use at a bar or a big club or something like that. But for a private studio, a practice room or something like that, it's perfect. One thing I might point out is it's sort of a four-way system. We got the subs, we got the mid bass, and the highs, which are running through crossovers, so it's not a true four-way system. But also the mids, I did dedicate my own EQ, my own amplifier, my own speakers to mids. A lot of people skip the mids. In fact, they'll scoop the mids out of their EQ. It'll end up looking like a smiley face. I hate it when people do that because most musical sound is mids. Guitars, the voice, the piano, all that stuff is mid-range, and you scoop it out, you end up losing all those sounds. Bass is cool, I get it. It's where all your money's at, it's where all your power's at. It's what you can feel pounding on your chest. So everybody obsesses over the bass. I understand why. Highs are highs, but highs don't really capture all the nuanced sounds. I remember probably, I don't know, 20, 30 years ago when I just started building sound systems and I started putting in mid-range systems on my, I guess they were vinyl records back then. I noticed I could hear things in the records that I never knew were there because you would always skip the mids. You'd have bass and you'd have highs and you'd think you have a complete system. It did sound good to my ear, but I didn't hear everything. Once I started focusing on mid-range cabinets, I could really start to hear different things and sounds in the recordings that I was never quite aware of. So I think that's kind of important that when you're building your sound system, you do not forget about the mids. You definitely want good highs, you definitely want good bass, but you also want mids. And with the mid bass, it's nice too because I can really hear the bass guitar. It's not just a bunch of sub thunder sound, which obviously that's really cool. You want to have that because that's what pounds on your chest. But the mid bass is what puts out like the bass guitar, a little bit of the punch from the bass drum. You don't want over mid bass, but you want it to fill that little gap. So I feel like I really built a pretty complete sound system in this room. Anything more was probably going to be overkill. Not that it's not fun to build more because you can always have more equipment, but works perfectly for this room, 600 square feet, and it'll flood the room in sound. So anyway, that's my sound system in my personal studio.